video blog for books that came out on March 11th. Is it March 11th? It is March 11th, 2009. As always, I'm Craig, your host. This is the first of 2 installments. We're going to get right into it because I'm going to try to cram 6 books in here. And as you know, I kind of get a little long-winded sometimes. This is going to have 2 Marvel books. The only 2 Marvel books I really read or cared to read this week. And the rest of it's going to be some indie books. There's a lot of indie books that I was really interested in this week. So let's get right to it, shall we? First up in the Marvel section, Guardians of the Galaxy, numbered 11. This is a fill-in issue. That's all there is to it. Abnett and Lanning wrote it, but you get a fill-in artist, and it really doesn't advance too much of the plot. Drax and Quasar are stuck in the some sort of mystical zone. We don't know exactly what they're doing there, and it's just a lot of goof around, and get a nice appearance from Maelstrom, which is nice, and it's good to see a nice little Starlin-esque cosmic character that probably hasn't had its due since the 90s. But other than that, this is probably the weakest of the 11 issues that have come out of this book so far. It's really disappointing in that sense. You know, the backup art was not that great, and on top of that, it's just kind of a throwaway, forgettable story. Normally, when I read Guardians of the Galaxy, I'm really fired up at the end. I'm like, man, that was great. I'm going into the next issue, even if there's not a cliffhanger. I just really want to go into the next issue because it's just so good. And this one is just kind of like, I'm really not sure why I'm buying this anymore. And that's really a bad omen for this book. Hopefully they're going to get back on track. I know they're kind of sidetracked right now. It seems like this was supposed to be a War of Kings and they changed the content possibly. Those of you who follow the solicits better than I do can tell me about that. But I don't know. There's just something lacking in this book. It just seemed out of place. It seemed like a fill-in issue. Next up, X-Men Noir number 4. Oh yeah, another good Dennis Calero cover. As we've already seen, that was one of the teaser pieces. This wraps the story up quite nicely. A good friend of mine, Blue Goblin, longtime supporter of this blog, mentioned to me that it was kind of probably the worst of the 4 issues, and I would have to agree. The first half of it, Dennis Calero's art just doesn't pop. It's just, you really don't know who these characters are. You know, when you draw Magnus and Pietro so close together, you know, when you draw all these other characters in such dark situations, you can't really tell who they are. There's a lot of silhouettes. If I go back and read 1 through 3 right before I read this one, I might have a little more sense of who these people are. But it was really tough to follow the first half of this book. And then there's a big reveal, and in the interest of not spoiling things, as I always do on this video blog, there's a very nice big reveal, and I was very excited about it. And all of a sudden, it was invested in the book again. And almost instantly, the art problems changed as well. I was totally in this book, and I could actually see what was going on, and I knew exactly what was happening. And Fred Van Lente delivered the final point, you know, the final chapter, which was perfect for this. It was just right on, spot on, exactly what I wanted. So it started a little slow, but then it delivered right at the end. Great stuff ultimately around. Let's take a look around the indie scene and see what's going on over there. Let's start with City of Dust number 5. City of Dust wrapped up this week. I believe I skipped 3 and 4. I know I've read at least number 1, probably number 2. But 3 and 4 I had missed, and I had no problem getting right back in on 5. The themes from the first couple issues are still there, and as always, you know, Steve Niles writes a great story, very interesting. You know, it's not just zombies and werewolves and, you know, horror stuff where he's cut his teeth and where he's made his mark. It's a really interesting theory about dystopian futures and the power of imagination. Really well done. Again, Radical Comics with another great series. I can't recommend them highly enough. Everything they do is great. They're redoing Charlie and Flytrap by Arthur Sydum now that he's famous. You know, before when he was just some guy doing Charlie and Flytrap and nobody bought it. Now you know him as the Marvel Zombies guy. They're redoing his stuff, recoloring it, which I think will make it look infinitely better. But again, you know, if it's got the Radical R on it, I don't think you're going to be disappointed. Freedom Formula was about the only one that was kind of shaky just because it wasn't really my forte. And it didn't appeal to me beyond that, you know. But other than that, that company is putting out great stuff. Always check them out. In IDW, we have The Life and Times of Savior 28. J.M. DeMatteis doesn't usually get away from the big 2, it seems like. And here he is at IDW telling the story, sort of a superhero deconstruction, you know, and we can talk about how it came out the Wednesday after Watchmen and how that's all, you know, fitting and all that. It really is written by someone who understands superheroes. It's really well done. It's very interesting, and you get to see the world around this superhero, what's going on around this guy and how he would exist in the real world. And that to me is what makes this very, very interesting. with a dead character. I don't know how long it can necessarily sustain its momentum. You know, if it's a mini series, again, I swore this was solicited as an ongoing. I could be wrong, but if it's a mini series, then it's a good idea. But if it's an ongoing, I can't wait to see how they're going to tell this. There's a lot of flashback, obviously, because the main character is dead, and that's not really a spoiler. It's right on the cover. But what else is out there? You know, all this other stuff that's out there going around him makes this book compelling, and it's definitely a unique approach. You know, it's away from all these other deconstruction superhero stories that we see week in and week out. You know, because somebody thinks they're redefining the superhero genre. This really is good. Definitely worth checking out. From Ape Entertainment, Superhuman Resources. Now, I really had high hopes for Ape Entertainment in general, and here comes Superhuman Resources. And I've seen some really good advanced reviews of this book, actually advanced reviews of like the first 2 or 3 of the 4-issue miniseries. The problem is Justin Bleep's art does not pay off. Ken Marcus's writing is okay, but Justin Bleep's art is really pulling this book down. The idea is here's this normal guy who gets hired in as a temp at the offices of a superhero team, and he has to deal with hilarious things, like a reformed zombie is the secretary, and he's taking phone calls like, "Zombor will eat your brain with a straw, please hold." That's funny, like in and of itself, like that little capsule is funny, but it just seems like this book, at least in issue 1, is, you know, here's a character introducing our main character to everybody, giving them the tour, and really it serves just as a, you know, a telling, not a showing. Just here's this person and they're wacky, here's this person and they're also wacky, here's this person and they're crazy. It doesn't really pay off as a story just yet, and you know, hopefully the 2nd and 3rd issues will deliver more on that. But for a 4-issue miniseries, you can't spend the first one just introducing everybody and then give them like sketchbook pages in the back with descriptions of who these characters are, because the last 4 pages of the book are the first, you know, the whole first issue. Really, it's a good idea, and I think it's going to eventually pay off. It's just going to be tough. So here's hoping that it does pay off. But I anticipated, or I like that less than I had anticipated. Last up for this blog, and I think I'm moving at a really good pace here today. Super Zombies, number 1. Mark Guggenheim's on this book, which is interesting to see him at Dynamite. And the idea is there was a plague that was going to affect the human race and turn them all into something. Then this guy created a vaccine, and the vaccine somehow created this awakening within people, and they started getting superpowers, but also now it's turning them into zombies. Alright, it's kind of a good idea, but I think that there's a lot in this book that is thrown in front of you under the assumption that you know or care right away. And, you know, from characters being introduced with little pull-out bubbles, you know, like a little arrow in a data file box, you know, here's this name and what team they're on and their powers. Like, you shouldn't have to do that for 20 pages of a comic book. I know that's modern storytelling. We just want to jump right into it and possibly, you know, introduce all these characters all at once so that we can get it all going, because we don't have time to set them all up. There's no time to, you know, worry about sales figures, but still, it's just, it's fast and it's furious and it's there, and I don't necessarily think it pays off as a comic book. I mean, if it's very dense if you go back on it and, you know, continue to show a lot of interest in learning all of this stuff, just to see these characters possibly abandoned after issue 6, you know. There's potential there. There's so much potential in this book. It's really a good word to describe this. There's good potential. You know, Guggenheim has a great idea. The other co-writer has a great idea. I can't remember his name right now. It's just not there. It's just not realized just yet. And maybe that's, you know, unfair criticism for a first issue, but this is not the type of first issue I would expect. So we'll see where it goes from here. That's it for this installment. Stay tuned for part 2, where we've got your DC books for the week. Thanks for watching.